Hey guys, so I'm currently in the process of setting up my sacred space in my room. I'm really excited to have a very minimal amount of stuff, just really putting around me what is most sacred to me. And because I'm doing this, obviously I'm setting up my altar, and I figured before I really set it up to be my personal space that I would take you guys through the few decks that I have really deeply connected with. It's just a handful of decks. They keep getting pared down, like they're packed away. Like I'm actually getting rid of some decks and then most of them are packed away. And I wanted to show you the decks I'm using now because once I set up my entire altar, I often don't like to take too many pictures of it or take video of it unless I'm specifically intuiting that that's a good idea or that my guides are okay with that, because a lot of times I feel like it's my sacred space and I don't want that documented out there in the internets. So I thought I would go through the decks that I'm using right now. I think a lot of these you guys will recognize, but I like to keep my channel up to date for myself, but also so you guys can see what I'm doing. We just had the spring equinox, so obviously the energies are shifting. I know for me, my energy is shifting really intensely right now. I'm coming to a lot of realizations. I'm feeling an awakening within me, obviously because of the springtime, but also just where I'm at in my life. So these decks are pretty hardcore. I do have a few loving decks to kind of balance it out, but most of these are just really intense life changer decks. Before we get into it though, if you like my shirt, this is a part of my clothing line on Soul Journey Magics on my Etsy shop. My clothing line was originally called Rebecca G, and it still has that little logo because obviously I've designed them. But now it's called Soul Journey or Soul Journey Magics, like my Etsy shop. So I'm re-putting out that clothing line. I'm going to be putting that out there. I really want that to be a part of my journey and really put a lot of effort into that. I think it's a really cool avenue. I've always liked fashion, so I always thought, you know, marrying my spirituality and fashion was a really cool thing for me. So if you like this shirt, we have a bunch of sizes up on the site. I'm in the process of reposting it and putting all my designs up. They're not all up yet, so if you like this, go check it out, but be sure to check it out later on because I'm going to be posting a lot of new products on that as well. So anyway, so there's that, and yeah, so let's get into the decks. So like I said, I don't have a lot of decks that I am using right now. I'm feeling very minimalist. It's what feels best to me right now. So these are just my all-time favorite decks right now, and the ones that are just really connecting to me. So the first one here is the Crystal Mandala Oracle, Yeah, by Alana Fairchild. This is a deck that I picked up in Australia. Peter actually bought this for me, and then I bought it for him before I left, actually. So now we both have a copy. We both really connected to this deck over the winter, and it comes in and out of my spiritual practice. It's a really lovely deck. It has to do with Ascended Masters, angels, and goddesses? Yes. And they're each connected to a crystal, and they're just really lovely. I like to meditate on the mandalas, and I find that if I actually kind of stare at it for long enough, it actually feels like the mandala is moving, and I really like it. It's a really cool feeling, and it's very meditative. The book along with this is unbelievable. I'd say the book is actually more amazing than the deck. Like, the deck is great, but the book is really where you get all the juicy information. So it's definitely one you'd want to use with the book because it just gives so much more depth to the cards, but meditating on the mandalas alone is amazing as well. The next deck is one that I've been raving about recently, and that's the Marielle Tarot. Like I told you guys, I recently connected with this deck since coming back to the States, and I couldn't be more in love with this deck. It is definitely my first go-to. The next tarot deck is actually one that I'm gravitating to a lot. I just have 3 tarot decks right now that I'm working with, and they're all very interesting energy and very strong energy. Well, the last one's a little more gentle, and I think that's why I like it. It gives it more of a rounded out reading, but this one is definitely the one I go to for really deep soul work stuff that I know I need to look at. It really brings me into a space of deep deep reflection, and I love that. A lot of people say this is kind of a harsh deck. I do find that it's honest, but I don't find it harsh. I find a lot of clarity in it, and maybe that's, I just like going deep. I don't know, but I just find it's a really amazing deck to do deep, deep, magical soul work, and it has been absolutely a joy to work with so far. This next deck is my most recent deck, and this is the deck that Marielle got me for an early birthday present before she left, and that's the Lin Strider Tarot. I'd been kind of lusting after this for a while, but when I got it, I didn't immediately connect to it. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll know I posted a little bit about my interaction with it the first time I did a reading, which is pretty magical. This deck kind of surprised me. I actually feel like I can't really put this deck's energy into words. It's powerful, powerful messages. Like the first reading I ever had, it was a 17 card spread, and 16 out of the 17 cards were major arcana, and I was like, wow, this is going to be a very intense deck. In fact, I haven't done many readings where it hasn't been a whole ton of major arcana, so it should be interesting to see how that shifts as I work farther with this deck. The art is intriguing and lovely. It's one of those decks where I almost don't know how I feel about it, but I know I like it, but I'm just like, what is happening? Like, it's a really weird taste, so to speak, if that makes sense. But it's definitely one I keep being drawn to, and here you can see it's on my altar, so there's something about it that really intrigues me and I want to go deeper with. This next deck holds a very special place in my heart. This is the Mayan Oracle. This was given to me by Peter for my birthday last year, and this has to do with the Mayan calendar and synchronicity and the energies on the planet. This is a very different sort of deck. This deck is out of a system done by Jose Aguilas, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's like the tip of the iceberg. I'm starting to read his book. This deck is amazing, and it's a whole thing. And so I feel like this deck is just like I said, the tip of the iceberg. But I will tell you, this deck, almost more than any other deck, is so grossly on point. It's amazing. Me and Marielle have been exploring the Mayan app, Mayan time app. I think it's called 1320. I feel like that's wrong. I'll put it here on the thing, what the app is, and it's unreal. Just any type of numbers that come up, if you look up the tone for that number and everything, it's amazing how on point it is for just like every moment of your life. So this deck has been quite the magical experience, and I didn't actually connect to this deck as much until actually me and Peter broke up, and all of a sudden I felt like I needed to use this deck. It kind of called out to me, and it's been a really amazing thing. So it's kind of interesting that he gave me this deck, but I ended up ultimately having it on my own personal journey, so that was kind of interesting. So down here on the bottom shelf, I have kind of my more gentle decks. So I have these 3 decks here. Like I said, I have a 3rd tarot deck down here, and this is the Shadowscapes Tarot. Now this tarot deck is very honest and doesn't, it's not super airy-fairy, but it does have a gentle quality that the other 2 tarot decks don't quite have. There's a bit of a, I hope you guys can see this. I don't have a lot of light in here. It has a completely different energy. It does have an ethereal energy. It has a more gentle energy. I feel like I could pull any card out of this and I could feel like a positive growth from that, even if it was, you know, the 10 of Swords or the 5 of Wands. Like, even though those kind of come up as maybe like agitated cards or cards that you wouldn't want to have come up, I feel like this deck often shows me the positive side of that card, and that's been really important for me recently, just to kind of offset the Marielle Tarot or a lot of my other decks that are a little more hard hitting. So I love this deck. The art for this is absolutely stunning. It's just wonderful, this deck. And I didn't actually bring this one with me to Australia. So this was a really lovely deck to come home to. This next deck is the Quan Yin Oracle by Alana Fairchild. This deck is interesting because it was one of the first decks I ever bought, and I never really connected with it. My first Alana Fairchild deck that I really connected with was the Isis Oracle, because she as a goddess really was a huge part of my spiritual journey. And I thought she was my matron goddess, or she was, and I'm not super hardcore about like anything in that sense. Like, I don't commit to one thing because obviously I'm going to change over the years. But she was my quote-unquote matron goddess for several years, and then at New Year's when I tapped into my guides and was like, what are we doing? I felt a huge shift and felt that Isis stepped back and that Quan Yin stepped forward. And I really do see that as... for the last few years, I've really needed the strong, empowered, self-determined woman. And I do feel that in the same way, but I feel like this year is going to be the year of creating gentleness as a balance with that energy. And so Quan Yin, of course, comes in, very loving goddess. So this deck calls out to me and has been amazing the last few months. Let me see if I can get this here so you guys can see it. And it was interesting because unlike most decks where I was just called to use it, I was more called to work with Quan Yin. So I thought, hey, I'm going to pull out this deck. I'm going to work with it. And so it was more of like a deciding to devote this year to her energy. And she has not been disappointing. Like all Alana Fairchild books, it has been so spot on. And it's really been amazing to connect to the creative, divine, flowing feminine energy of Quan Yin, and it's just absolutely beautiful. The art is very different from what I'm used to in my decks, but it really just brings in a whole new feeling, and I feel like that's exactly what I'm going to need this year. And the last deck here, I'm not going to lie, I put on my my altar because, like I said, with so much intense energy shifting in my space and having so many hard-hitting decks, I wanted a deck that was genuinely just loving and relaxing and beautiful. So if I'm having a hard time, I can just pull one of these. And this is the Universal Love Healing Oracle cards by Tony Carmine Salerno. And I just love his decks. And I love the art. It's glorious. It's beautiful. And these decks are just so lovingly empowering. Like, they are gentle and beautiful, but they have a strength to them that I absolutely love. And I just adore the art. Oh, let's see, is this upside down? No, it's not. Just that one. I love the art. It feels like a different layer of energy work, sort of. Like, it's not quite like Alex Grey, but it definitely has like a seeing of energy sort of feeling to it, and a real use of color to express emotion and feeling. And I just absolutely love this deck. If you're just getting into Oracle decks, I would highly recommend, well, first of all, if you're getting into decks, I personally would suggest going for an Oracle deck first and then going into Tarot, because it's a much more intense system. Obviously follow your intuition on that. Some people just want to do Tarot. That's awesome too, but I found Oracle decks was a great way to step into card reading and opening up the intuition. But I would say for a beginner, a Tony Carmine Salerno deck is just absolutely amazing, because it's loving, it's gentle but honest, and it will really kind of get those intuitive feelings flowing, and it's just got a really, really lovely divine energy to it. My other favorite of his, actually probably more than this one, I've kind of put it away for now, but is his the Gaia Oracle, which just takes the cake. If I could only have like one Oracle deck, I don't know, guys. There's a couple I really love, but the Gaia Oracle would probably be close to the top, if not the one to choose if I couldn't have any other Oracle. Oh, I don't know. The Mayan Oracle exists. The Mayan Oracle does exist, you guys. I don't know. Either way, it would be in my top 5. But anyway, so this is his other deck, the Universal Love Oracle, and I just love this Oracle. So those are the 7 decks that I'm currently using. I'm sure I'm going to pull out a few more since I'm at my mom's, and that is where all my stuff is packed away. So I may pull out a few, but I'm really feeling pretty solid on these 7 decks, and I really kind of want to step into a space of more getting to know these decks instead of having, like, I used to have all my decks out, like all of my decks out at once, and I had my favorites that came in and out, but honestly, I didn't really get to deeply know any of my decks aside from my few favorites. So I kind of like the idea of having a bunch of them put away and really just working with the ones that really sing to my soul. So I think I'm going to do that for a while. Obviously, I'll keep you guys up to date on what my collection is doing and all that. Obviously, when I move back to Australia, I think I'm only going to have a handful of decks. I really kind of went overboard last time with bringing a bunch of stuff. Not to get like crazy, like on a tangent, but for years, up until this past, well, recently, things were a huge comfort space for me. I had an issue with hoarding. I'm going to do a video on that at some point. But that's something I've really shifted out of since going to Australia, slowly but surely. And going to Australia, because it was such a huge leap, it ended up being my safety net. So even though I could only bring a few suitcases, there was a lot of stuff. You know, I had a lot of clothes, a lot of decks, a lot of crystals, a lot of stuff from home. And as I realized, I actually felt more comfortable in Australia, that I didn't really need those things, that I was finding that they were cumbersome. I really had a change of perspective on what things really meant to me, and, you know, really feeling like, you know, they were trying to fill a hole that only I could fill with self-love, and, you know, really taking a different look at it. No, don't get me wrong, I'm a Taurus. I do like my things. I like to be comfortable. I like to feel warm and yummy and have good food. So, like, you know, lessening my stuff as a Taurus might be different than, you know, someone else, but I've definitely pared back. Like, I got rid of like 80% of my stuff when I left for Australia, and that was huge. I had 4 garage sales. It was massive amounts of work. So this, even though I do have, you know, good amount of stuff, it nowhere near what I used to have. And I will do a video on that. I want to talk about my personal experience with hoarding, and, you know, I have to, like, you know, I want to come out and actually say that that was a thing, because denial really is not conducive to healing or shifting. And so expressing that and saying, I have this tendency and I've moved through it, I've moved away from it, and that feels really good. It will help other people who have that issue, but also help me be honest with myself and love every part of myself. So anyway, kind of on a tangent, so I will be keeping you guys up to date on my decks and all of that yummy stuff. And like I said, I have a handful of videos. Well, I actually have a list of like 80-something videos, but I do have some that I'd like to do sooner or later, so watch out for those. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. If you would like to support me in making my videos and my travels and putting my information out there, I do have a GoFundMe in the description down below. If you want to donate to that, feel free. If not, it's all good, but it is there if you'd like to donate to that. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Here, I'll do this. Hi. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Sending you love and light, many blessings. Namaste. And don't forget, it's all about the soul journey.